Alan Jones, and I welcome you to our Life Stories Worldwide live broadcast, where we share life stories from all over the world. We have stories of all types, stories of overcoming difficulties and struggles in life, dealing with pain and rejection, and much more. And these lives that you hear about, they've actually been transformed in a wonderful way. You're going to hear that today, how a life has been transformed. If you want to contact us, there are several ways you can contact us. You can contact us on our phone line. You can see the number on the screen, +44 794 355 0287. You can email us on lifestoriesworldwide at gmail.com. You can also go to our website, www.lifestoriesworldwide.com. There you'll find all sorts of information. And you can also sign up to our YouTube channel. Be a subscriber on our YouTube channel, Life Stories at Lunch. And if you subscribe to our channel, don't forget to click the bell, and then we can let you know that when we're live on there. You can also contact us at any time, messaging us on Facebook. So today, our life story comes to you from Rotherham in the United Kingdom, where we have Jamie Bird, who's waiting to share his story with us. Jamie suffered from depression and had a problem with drugs for a number of years. But he's been set free, and he's going to share his story with you. So it gives me a great pleasure to welcome Jamie Bird to share his story with us. Thank you, Jamie.
Hi there, Alan. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to share and come on and share my testimony with you all. What a great platform to do it on. So I'll start at the beginning. So I really had, as far back as I can remember, a normal-ish childhood, up to the point of probably my mum and dad getting divorced at age 6 is probably the most thing that I remember from that early point of being moved around and being shipped to different places, because we went and lived with my dad, and my sister went and lived with my auntie for a while. One of my older sisters went and lived with my auntie for a while, which then made us, it were brokenness right at the beginning when we look back at it now, but because we were separated for a while and nobody knew where we was, and we was in hiding for that time. And I stayed at my dad's, and everything was okay, going to school and doing all the normal things kids do, go out and play and have friends on the estate, up till probably age 11, when I started to dabble in some drugs and smoking cannabis and different substances, and then going out partying and taking other substances like ecstasy and things like that with a group of people that I was hanging around with. The parties that you went to, that's what you was doing, and I was doing that from, like, say, 11 onwards. Got worse when I got to like 14, 15, as I got older, as the drugs became more and more prevalent in my life, where it would come more of a daily occurrence. And then we was going out at the weekends, but coming out after the weekend, what used to happen then is instead of having the come downs that we used to have, I was using other drugs to help me come down on. That was given to me by somebody, so I was constantly doing that. Now, I didn't see an issue with that because my lifestyle was fine Monday to Friday, go out the weekend, come down over the weekend, and everything would be fine, until one day I realised that I become addicted to heroin, which followed by crack cocaine at an early age, constantly using every day. And because I knew I had an addiction, I had to then fund that addiction and keep that way, which then broke my family unit up. But I'll go back a little bit, because I think I've jumped a bit far in front, but there were some good times in my childhood, so it wasn't all bad. Me and my dad's relationship broke down probably at the age of 14, 15. But prior to that, there was little gaps in there where I had a few good years where we had family around us and people that come into my dad's life that made our lives better. Because my dad never gave us anything really before this person entered. We was left really to fend for ourselves when it comes to my dad, because he was quite self-centered and didn't have much, and all he cared about really at that point was himself and the things that he was doing. So we come isolated would be the word of putting it, but then we had, like, say, had periods where we had some of his girlfriends come into his life where my younger sister was born in, where them times was brilliant. I have really good memories from those times. Not because of my dad did anything, just because his partner used to get us things. So like one Christmas, I remember my dad's thing for that one Christmas were buying us presents was a little more control with a wire on. And that was really it for me, and something small for my sister. And she came into our lives and introduced into her family by putting names on presents that wasn't even ours to make that family home. And that was stable for that while until they broke up. We moved them back back to the area that I came from. And then that's when you start to hang around with the people you did and start smoking drugs and doing things like that. Like I said, this escalated to addiction of heroin and crack cocaine, where I struggled with that addiction for many years. And in and out of that addiction, I try and get help, and then I'd fall back into the addiction because I'd no way out. To the point where, to be fair, I look back and I think, has God got a purpose for people's lives? Well, I look at it and I think I should have been dead a long time ago. As I overdosed so many occasions, to the point of being not purposely overdosing by taking too much and just going over and then being dragged out of houses and dumped in places and not got help and come round eventually, when really that should have been the end of my life, but I was still here, still struggling with that addiction. Like I said, then it becomes crime to fund that addiction, so getting in trouble with the police and some drug dealing in places and committing crimes.
He's coming. Jesus is coming. I can't wait to hear the trumpet call. He's coming. Jesus is coming. And when he comes, we'll crown him Lord of all. And when he comes, we'll crown him Lord of all. Life Stories. Life Stories Worldwide is brought to you every Monday night at 8 p.m. UK time. We broadcast live on Facebook, Zoom and YouTube. So why not join us every Monday night at 8 p.m. UK time.
Against other people to fund that addiction, I struggled with that for a long time. That was part of my life. That was an everyday occurrence, to the point where my dad really didn't have much to do with us. He literally moved on with his life with other people and ignored us as such and cut us out of his life. There was some, at that time with my dad, through them years, there was physical abuse that happened with my dad and things like that we struggled in, that nobody really knew about, but used to occur on a weekly, daily basis when I was living at the house, until the point that he kicked me out. I don't want to really dwell on that, but till the point he kicked us out, which then I had to go and live in a hostel from the age of 16 in Sheffield, in a new neighbourhood with different people, where the drugs still followed and my lifestyle still protruded that way, to the point where I didn't see any other way out. And then you've come with that, you have people coming in and out of your life, so you never feel wanted at any point in that time, because nobody wants to have anybody to do with you. Nobody wants to actually speak to you when you're in that lonely place. And there probably would people that I could have reached out to that at the time you don't think that you could do, so you never do. You just continue in that spiral. And then one of my points that I look at, and I think one that I'll always remember, is that I overdosed and was rushed into the hospital. And I remember my sister coming, and at this point my older sister didn't have any children, but wasn't living at home. And I remember her coming, bringing me some toiletries and clean, so I could get washed and things like that. And her saying to me, she never wanted to look and explain to her children that I'd never be here in the future, thinking that I could die. So I then tried seeking help through the psychologist that you had to see in the hospital at the time, which my sister came into the meeting and left the meeting, left me in the meeting on my own, and ran off, really, because she couldn't cope with the conversations that we're having, because they were asking me what drugs I was taking and how much and things like that, and going through that kind of what your lifestyle was like. But they put me in touch with a outreach program. I'm skipping a few years because I don't want to give glory to them years either, because they're not anything that's good in my life whatsoever. But they offered me to get me help. So I had a time where I had to go through these different treatment programs, and they'd fail because they put me on something that then I could never fulfill me, could never get a grasp of, and I'd continued to spiral. I did reach a point where I was told by one of the key workers there that if I wanted help, that I had to get clean, and they was looking to send me to rehab. So I managed to come off my methadone, come off the script, get clean, and go on to other drugs to stay that way. However, because I still had regular drugs tests at that time that I had to keep giving to them so I could get the help that I needed, what happened was I had the key worker come in and say to me, "We're not supposed to tell you this, Jamie, but if we get another clean drug test, we're going to pull the funding. The people that give you the funding are going to pull it. And we know that you need it, so we don't want you to do that." I ended up going out and having to use again in order that I could go back there to give negative drug samples, to get the help that I'd cried for such a long time. At this point, my mum was trying to help the best way that she knew how, and struggled in that. Now, my mum's side of the family are all ex-Jehovah's Witnesses, and didn't really have anything to do with me at all in that lifestyle. My nan cut me off. They were only really my mum at that time that were a constant as such in that period, on and off, when she could cope with what was happening in my life. But so I eventually got given a date to go to rehab, which was I'll still remember I class it as my clean date, was the January the 18th. And I'm now 16 years clean this January, off and on, which I'll go through as I go through the story. So I got to go up on the January. At this point, I think I was like 18, 19 years old. I went up to Newcastle, up to a rehabilitation program. When I was there for 2.5 years, in the end, they told me at the first day that I'd only be there like 3 months. So you go to these things thinking, it's only 3 months, I'll be able to do that. But I was there 2.5 years, because what they didn't tell me that I had to achieve steps to get out. And because my behaviour was erratic at times, and not knowing how to behave in them environments, you would still behave the way that you would do on the street. And so I was constantly in trouble and constantly struggling to do the program to how they would see. So it took 2.5 years in order for me to, in their eyes, complete that program. The issue I had with it was I was good at saying all the right things and filling all the right forms and having all the right meetings and saying all the right things to stay clean. And it must have sunk in at some point, but over the original time, that wasn't the case. I was just good at, like I say, getting through the meetings, so it looked as if I was capable to go out and back into the world again. They put us into like a outreach program, which gets you used to the community again. So you live in a shared house with the same people from the same program, but you live a more independent life. So at that point, you've still got key workers that come in every day and still breathalyzed and things like that. So at that point, I never had an issue with drink, but at that point, because I never had a drug, I always had a drug problem, never a drink problem. I was going drinking and doing all the things, even though I had breathalyzers. We knew that we could get around them, and did so on many occasions, knowing that you just stop drinking at a certain time, they come round in the morning, you would be fine at that point.
He's coming. Jesus is.
Life Stories. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel, Life Stories at Lunch, where you can see and hear many more life stories. Don't forget to click the bell so we can notify you when we are live on YouTube.
Bear in mind, Newcastle was a brand new city to me, and I spent 2.5 years of that locked in a house, only occasional weekend visits, and even they had to be monitored and taken out with somebody else. So you couldn't even go out with your parents. When my mum used to come and see me, you couldn't even go out with her on your own. You still had to be monitored with somebody there. So it was a lot of control. So to get out into community and no longer be controlled and now have money in your pocket again, because you was allowed to have your own money that wasn't controlled at that point, I began to use, and I think it came to a point, I still remember the day I came out and I still found a reason to score and still was using at that point, still living in there, but still using. And then I get found out of you, still back using, and have to go back through, not back into the main house, but still back through the program of trying to get clean again and stay clean on the out. It becomes so easy for me, because I think anybody that suffers with addiction, like I did, can find drugs anywhere in the country. And unless you are in the right mind frame to get over these things, we never do. And I never actually did. I came back to Rotherham eventually after using and getting picked up and brought home. I get up a flat up there. I was at home for a few years, still doing okay, but still dabbling with other things and thinking that I was doing the right thing. I then met my partner, who is now my wife. At that time, we were seeing each other, and everything was going well. And since that point, really, my life got better. The addiction got better, where I wasn't using and haven't used ever since that point of any class A drugs whatsoever. I'm not saying them times have ever been easy at all, because you still struggle, and you still have them days where we still struggle in that time. And that's where I was at with that. I was still struggling, but then I was still struggling with depression, and I'd get down and depressed, where I'd just not leave the house for weeks and weeks, till my partner used to have to get me up and drag me out in order to get up and move on in life. And then you're on tablets to try and control that, and I never really give them any option of working because I didn't want to be on them. So these are all things that creeps in, because you think you overcome one thing, here comes another one. But I'm so grateful for my wife that I am sat here drug free, because there's times where I have struggled, where she's had to pull me through. I have 2 children, one now 17, the other one 10 years old, that I've had constantly been in their life without an addiction, so they've never had to witness that in regards to my using or anything like that. Only my wife and family members have seen me struggle. But I'll come to the time of around the time that I had it was an idea, and I used to say to my wife, I need to go to church. Now, why I needed to go, I didn't know why I needed to go. I just tell her I needed to go. Then I didn't go. So I knew I needed to go at that point. But I just choose never to go. I just make excuses why I wouldn't go. I'd be depressed. so I would not leave house, so that would be an excuse not to go. And we went down to my local shop where my wife works and bumped into an old friend that I knew from my past history when I was using for many years, that I've known this person that I bumped into. And I'd had something to do with him since coming home. But we'd had like a gap where we'd not spoke, but this day I bumped into him. Anyway, I needed something doing at the time, so I says, I think it was like moving a fish tank from my house to theirs, my mum's house, or things like that. So I asked him to give me a hand. So he agreed. He come and picked it up. I was telling him that I kept getting the idea of going to church. He then showed me a testimony of somebody's testimony that I watched on YouTube that this person had done and was from a local church in our area. But he'd also had a platform like this where he'd come on and shared his past experiences. So I watched it and watched it and watched it to the point that I actually commented on the testimony. My friend reached out and said to me, would you like to go? So I thought about it for a little bit longer. I thought, oh, yes, I know I needed to go, so I'm going to go. He came and picked me up and we went together, because at this point, obviously, I didn't know that he was back in church or anything like that. He just showed me the testimony and then said, would you like to go? He'd then been attending this church for a couple of months before me, or a couple of weeks before I did. So really, it's how God works. He brings us in with somebody that's familiar to us, that understands where we come from. And he then went, now I'll be honest on here, like I'm honest with everybody. I went to the church. It's a Pentecostal church, which is local to ourselves. So you're walking in from a world of suffering with depression and drug addiction and not knowing how to cope with certain things, and you walk into somewhere that they all look a little bit crazy, would be my way of putting it and explaining it. And I went, and they all got their hands in the hair, they're all singing and praising, and I'm thinking, so I says to my friend, I know I've got problems, but I think these have more problems than me. But I kept saying, come next week, because I went the following week, and I kept going to church.
He's coming. Jesus is coming. I can't wait to hear the trumpet call. He's coming. Jesus is coming. And when he comes, we'll crown him Lord of all.